Dimensions, you say? Dimensions. Well, yeah, last time we spoke about secrets, so now let's talk about dimensions. I mean, the thing is, we actually all know what dimensions are and that they exist. You know, what about 2D, 3D, 4D, 5G? But yeah, the informational realm is a dimension that's invisible, but that's how you're accessing this. Other dimensions are all here. They're not somewhere else. The Indian guru Nisargadatta Maharaj explained that the other world is this world, rightly seen. So it's where we all are, just seen from a different perspective. Let's explore that perspective and go for it. Please like and hit subscribe so that we can keep cruising on this journey together. Talk of dimensions doesn't have to be all woo. It can be mathematical and scientific. And you actually know these places. Put together, you spend 4 months out of every year in a different dimension to the one you're in now, in dreams. Yes, the mind is one of these dimensions, albeit a familiar one. Before we explore the dimension of the mind in other videos, some simple old school mathematics can help us conceptualize how the dynamics of dimensions work. Because think about it, there's two different meanings of the word dimension. One is like the dimensions as in measurements of something, and then the other is this kind of realm where we can go to. And check it out, these concepts are linked. We're going to use the first meaning of dimensions, measurement, to point to how the other meaning of dimensions, the realm, works. Let's use the circle, a pattern we're all familiar with, and we'll use that to illustrate a dimensional jump, so we have something we can ground this thinking in before moving on to talk about how it impacts our daily lives. So this is a 2D circle. It has the two dimensions of length and width. Now let's add the perspective of just one more additional dimension, height, to make it 3D. Oh, they're lovely, likes that, looks good. And more than that, it not only looks good, but by adding another dimension of height, we not only see ourselves differently, but we see our context differently. Whereas in 2D, our little blue circle just seems to move either left or right. In 3D, there's far more interesting possibilities. We see the layers of the story that weren't available to us in the lower dimension, the bigger picture, a bigger explanation that makes sense of all the small stuff, answers the why questions. Rob Bell illustrates the profound spiritual implications of the leap in dimensions in his talk, Everything is Spiritual. Imagine a world of 2D, like a flat paper, with 2D circles living on it. Imagine these were two-dimensional living beings. Someone from one dimension higher, from 3D like me, could be incredibly close to them, but they can't see it. They might be able to sense the other dimension, but it's outside of their capacity to objectively see that realm. The hand of God could be ridiculously close to you, but the only evidence you have in that framework is a feeling of faith. Or what if a 3D high-dimensional being jammed their hand through the paper? Well, my fingers are all of slightly different lengths and thicknesses, so they would appear at different geographical places, and they would appear at slightly different times, historical periods, and be of different thicknesses, having different characteristics. They would appear from the vantage point of the 2D world to be completely separate entities. Yet from the perspective of just one more dimension from the 3D world, we can see that they're all aspects of the same hand, the hand of God. From just one dimension higher, we can see that God can be the mover behind things that are geographically disconnected, happen in different time periods, and have different characteristics. And it works that way in our daily lives too. David Bohm talks about the Implicat Order and how changes on the deepest dimensions of reality, the folded reality, the Implicat Order, create seemingly disconnected effects in the external world, the explicate order, but really they're actually from the same thing. The idea goes back further than that to Plato. In his cave allegory, he talks about how most of society lives on the inside of a cave, transfixed by these 2D shadows on the wall. They just keep watching these things. You know, shadows are actually caused by 3D objects, and so it's objects outside of the cave that are being reflected off a fire inside. But only one person leaves the cave to discover what they are. He sees these higher dimensional objects, a world that adds depth to what his society has been watching their whole lives. He's super amped. But when he comes back to tell his buddies these profound secrets, no one believes him. They didn't have the ears to hear. Plato believed in the realm of ideal forms, a dimension which exists outside of time and space, and which this reality is merely a reflection of. Our heart has access to this realm, and by opening it up, it allows access for our mind as well. So as you go about your week, try to see things that happen to you as originating in a higher dimension and notice the patterns of connection between them. Paul in the Bible was taken up to the third heaven and saw things that are impossible to put into linear words. But he laid out a map in the Bible, and so that we can not only understand something of these dimensions, but experience them. So next time we'll talk about the power of the Christian framework in particular for accessing these dimensions and allowing them to transform us in our daily experience. The other world is this world rightly seen. Let's begin to see, right?